to today's Saturday morning session. Today is the 17th of August. Today we are going to discuss about section 128 capital A. It's going to be version 2.0 because last day we went through the section, the first day, and today we are going to go through what a wonderful speaker will take us through. Maybe some of the sections are left, and after that we'll go through some of the case studies. So without delaying any further, since we try to start on time and end on time, Rishabh ji, over to you for the deliberations.
Thank you, Arup bhai. I think I'll just, good morning, everyone. Again, it's a pleasure to have everybody here. Hopefully, I'll be able to add some more value add to this platform we've already built over the last Saturday session. I'll just quickly get to the topic immediately. I think, Arup bhai, you need to enable screen sharing. Arup bhai? Arup ji? Hello? Hello, am I audible?
You are audible. I think he's not there.
Achha.
I'll put him a call.
Okay, until we have the screen sharing enabled, I'll just summarize the pointers from the last session so that gives us a starting point. Basically, we had this confusion or a debate over whether at pending appeal is a necessary ingredient or a concomitant to have this benefit of the scheme. We had multiple views on this because of the wordings of 128A clause B and C. Also, we had this point that because of C, B also should be interpreted as even though appeal is not filed, you're still into the scheme. Well, we had this difference in perspective on this point. My only takeaway after rethinking or pondering.
Whether you can share the screen now.
Yeah. Yes. Is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Yes. So please let me know in case I'm not audible, and then I can immediately just pause for them until I really become audible. Coming back, I pondered over the debatable points we had last Saturday, and just wanted to put across one takeaway which came to my mind was that clause B and clause C stand on a different footing insofar as clause C, the time limit for appeal or your right to appeal is not yet extinguished. In fact, it's not yet even emerged until the tribunal is constituted. So therefore, clause C is still an indefinite time limit, whereas clause B, it has been bestowed upon you.
Rishabh ji, one request: can you put it in the slide mode? It's showing in the presenter view.
Just change in the display setting because I'm this half the screen only visible.
I'm sorry. What should I put it as?
No, you can you just
Now it is
press F5?
F5.
Let me just see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's better. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only submission which I had is clause B. You would have been bestowed upon the right to file the appeal, but you have missed the bus. So to that extent, while clause C, you still have not yet been conferred upon the right to file an appeal, effectively file an appeal, and therefore clause C to that extent is slightly on a different footing. So that was where we stopped. Then the other point is we were harping on the critical issue of whether a notice or an order can be broken up into sub issues and scheme can be opted for a particular issue. I think somewhere we had a unanimous view on this, that a notice or an order cannot be broken up. You cannot go issue wise, but you'll have to go in entirety. we had this possibility of a 5-year notice, wherein only 3 years would have been part of this scheme, but the other 2 years may not have been part of the scheme. In that case, what do you do? There were two hurdles we were having. One, the amount payable as per the notice is going to be much higher than what is eligible in the scheme, right? So there we were interpreting or part thereof, which is attached to the period effectively, and saying that, okay, in a 5-year period, you cull out the 3-year period, because you need to read both harmoniously, the period as well as the notice. To that extent, you need to, for the 3-year period, all the issues will have to be covered, is the reasonable interpretation I would take. And therefore, for the 3-year period, generally hope that officers give the period. They don't, generally we'd see that. But in that scenario, you call out the 3-year period and then you avail the benefit of this scheme. That was the second takeaway which we had last time. Thirdly, we had this peculiar issue where a 1718 or an 1819 notice may be under 74, but a 1920, because of a follow-on statement, could have come under 73, in which case I don't see a bar in claiming for the 1920 period. Of course, the first 2 years may be under the 74 proceeding, which is not eligible. Where we left off last time was on what do you mean by conclusion of a proceeding, and that's where I would like to now take forward this session.
Rishabh, sorry, one point about where the appeal was not filed. So what is the final take?
In my view, is if an appeal is not filed, you've missed the bus. You cannot claim the benefit of the waiver scheme. What Vishal Bhai's view really rang a bell for me. He said that why don't you file it, get it dismissed by way of appeal time limit, and then you fall under clause C, because you have the right to file against a dismission before the tribunal, or because against a defect before the tribunal, in which case you are reigniting your right.
So if that activity is not done, so this scheme is not applicable according to you.
That scheme is not applicable to us, is what I would view. Of course, we had contrary views to this, and both views are valid. Do you want to really test this view in the court when you're attempting to resolve a dispute, is where we left off last time. And then somewhere we had this concurrence that, if something is via media is possible, why don't you go down that path?
Got
Right?
it.
Go ahead. Yeah. Now,
Rishabh
we
bhai,
were
one more
left off
thing.
last time.
Hello.
Ha, Anandji.
Rishabh bhai, one thing I also want to ask, is the 128A applicable to the cases where under section 1752, where the notice has been converted from 74 to 73?
17.5? 17.5 clause I you're referring to?
Clause 2. Subsection 2. Which
Originally
allows
was
you...
74. After that, they have converted the notice to 73.
Okay.
Yes.
You're referring to 75.2, not 17.5.
Yes.
I got a little bit.
No, 75.2.
75.2, of course, that's there, no, in the proviso. You'll have to wait for an appellate authority's decision
Okay.
for it to be converted into 75.2, and then pursuant to that order. So then you are on the scheme, not because of 128 clause C, but you're on the scheme because of 128 clause C. Because B, you would have got the first appeal order.
Okay.
In which case, there would be a finding that this notice has to be, this order or this proceeding has to be treated at par with a 73 notice, subject to time limit restrictions. In which case, to the extent, now you will have, okay, possibly, there's an interesting point which now comes to my mind. Let's say in the 3-year time frame, okay, this is in a 3-year time frame, pursuant to the appellate authority stating that it's a 73 proceeding, there is a possibility that, for an example, 1718 becomes time barred, right? 1819
Right.
and 1920 is within time bar, but now to be treated at par with 73, right?
Right.
So you will have a demand of, let's say, 1 lakh. You are on appeal before before the first appeal. The first appeal says, yes, this is a 73 proceeding, and therefore it has to be treated accordingly. Once this happens, out of 3 years, 1 year becomes time barred. Okay. The other 2 years are within time limit, but under 73. Now the question which will come up is whether all 3 years are part of the scheme or 2 years are part of the scheme. Now, if you read 128A, it says where an amount is payable pursuant to a notice or an order, right? In this case, once 1718 is time barred, I think by operation of law, that amount is not payable. Although it's part of the order. I'll
Rishabh,
just
let me-
complete, Arubhai.
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah.
complete. So, although it's part of the totality of the order, by operation of law and time limit, 1718 seems to be falling in a scenario where the amount itself is not payable because of an appellate authority's decision. 1819, where they have been, shifted to a 73 proceeding, the amount will still be payable. You will have to claim this benefit under 128 clause C, saying an order is passed under 107, but of course, time limit is not yet triggered for filing the appeal before the tribunal, and no order is passed in a tribunal. In this case, I believe that yes, you can claim the benefit of 2 years. Yes, Arubhai, I'll pause here.
Yeah. So, Rishabh, what I think is that it 75(2) says once appellate authority feels that there is no proper ground for suppression, misrepresentation, of fraud, the notice issued under 74 will be deemed to be a notice under 73. So no
Correct.
further notice is being issued. So only thing is that the order is passed in pursuance to section 73. Because some of the matters that we had, say 283B, even what has happened is central tax, most of the notices they have issued under 74, even for 283B. So the appellate authority is saying, how can 283B be a matter of 74? So it will be under 73. So we'll pass the order under 73. So they are doing that. So I think in that case, there is no question of the notice becoming time barred. And that's why what we are insisting all the members or taxpayers to do is that now pray for an early petition for all the appeals which are under 74. Try to establish the ground that there is no suppression. Get the order converted to 73 and then you fall within 128A.
No, I didn't follow your point of why there will not be a time bar issue.
Because the notice is only for the purpose of deeming provision that the notice issued under 74 will be considered to be a notice under 73 and accordingly an appellate order is being passed. There is no fresh issuance of notice unless the demand is increased. Only if the demand is increased.
Arubhai,
fresh
I'm talking
notice.
about a case.
Hmm.
Let's take a case where September 23 was the last date to issue a 1718 notice, right?
Right.
My memory. Let's assume that.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say this show cause notice got issued on October 23.
Okay.
Yes, I'm talking about that scenario.
Okay, I was talking about the primary notice itself was issued after the limitation.
It was issued under 74, but after a 73 limitation.
Yeah, that will not bar. That will not be a challenge.
I'm talking about that scenario.
No,
In
that
which
will not be
case,
a challenge.
in which
See,
case
what is
the
happening? 75 took wordings, if you see,
Hmm.
it is that where there is no ground for 74, he is only converting that notice into 73.
correct, but the time limit will still apply.
Correct, sir. I like to add one point that for 75 subsection 2, the circular 185 has been issued.
Yeah.
On 27 December 2022. And quoting that point only, if it will be converted into the 73, then it has to be checked whether the order, whether the notice has been issued or not in that time. If it is not issued, then it will be outdated. It will be time barred.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Then that is what Rishabh ji is saying, right?
Yes. Yes. Now the issue what I'm trying to put forth before this forum is amount payable as per the order is still 1 lakh for all the 3 years. As per the order.
Okay.
But statutorily, because of time bar, only 2 years is payable. So I'm just trying to draw an exception to the earlier thought process that the entire amount as per the notice has to be payable. Okay, there we drew now two exceptions. One, if it's a 5-year order or a 5-year notice, then the scheme will operate only for the 3 years which you need to cull out. Second, because of an appellate order, the time bar operates, an amount is not payable for one of the years among those 3 years. In which case, again, you need to cull out only 2 years. Is the reading or understanding I could get from this, scheme.
Rishabh, sorry to interrupt. Why do you say, see, I have an option to go for an appeal saying that the order has been passed after the specified time limit. So this pay amount is not payable. That's the option 1. Option 2, given that this is a demand created under 73 for 1718, which clause of 128A doesn't, because from the government department perspective, this is payable under 73 for 1718. So shouldn't it be the choice of the taxpayer to fit under 128A?
No, can you, Venu, sir, can you give
Venuji,
me an
I think, but
example?
now the point is, I think what Rishabh Bhai wants to say, that if the notice itself becomes time barred, why
Correct.
should
Then
we
the
pay?
amount is not payable.
And now
No, but
rather by,
notice is time barred and order has come. What Rishabh said is order
but sir,
has
then
been
the order
passed.
itself will be defective. Now, if the notice is time barred, then the entire proceeding becomes invalid. So now
No,
I
no,
think
how
Rishabh
can
Bhai
you
wants
It's
to,
say
void ab
invalid? No, no,
initio.
no, we can't say that. It has to be said void ab initio by the next appellate authority. The appellate authority should set aside the case. You
No,
cannot say
I'm
that
talking
when
about
the
an
order
example
is
where,
late.
yeah, I'm talking about
Yeah.
a case where the appellate authority has said so, saying that it is not a suppression
Okay.
case.
Okay. So no. The appellate authority has said it is not suppression case. Case moved from 74 to 73. But unless specifically that the order is not set aside, the order is valid in the law. It's like liability is valid in the law.
Correct.
So when
yeah.
the liability is valid in the law, I need to again file an appeal to set aside, which is one choice, or I can still exercise. I don't want to fight it a small amount. I will let it go. I will take it advantage of the scheme. I think both the options would be available to the taxpayer.
Venu sir, can you give me an example of what you are trying to say?
Let's say same your example that 74 order is done for 1718 up until 2021.
Yes.
You went to 75-2. The order has been made under 73. But the officer, the appellate authority has said that, okay, this is an order under 73. But he did not touch upon the point that the first year has not been passed within the time. He has upheld the
Ground of
clauses under
suppression.
which yeah. So
Yeah.
now what is the choice of the taxpayer?
Right. So now you are standing at the point where a first appeal order is passed. Out of 3 years, 1 year is all 3 years are treated as a order under 73, right?
Right.
Now, when you read 73, we realize that the first 1718 is after September 23 or December 23, as the case may be,
Correct.
the notice or order.
Right.
Right. Now, are you saying the amount is still payable in respect of
Unless the order is not set aside, we cannot say that it is void ab initio. See, in our mind, we may think it is void ab initio, but the appellate authority should say that yes, okay, this is not within the time, and hence it is not valid. Unless that is not explicitly said, the order is in motion.
Okay. So, are you saying you need an order giving effect?
Yeah.
Okay.
There could be a situation today, someone might take up 1718 case and issue a 74 notice and pass an order. We would go ahead and challenge saying that it has been passed after the time limit of the 5th of August, we will challenge that, but we will never say that, okay, ignore that because it has been passed, issued late.
I'll also just ponder over your point. I'll also think over it. Although my view will be that I don't think you need an order giving effect when by operation of the statutory time limit itself, by implication of the order. Generally, of course, like I agree with you, Venu sir, appropriate appellate authority will not only stop by saying that this is not a case of suppression, an appropriate appellate authority will also go further and say, on account of this conclusion, among 3 years, 1 year is
1 year.
time barred, and the other
Yeah.
2 years are within time limit, and then on these 2 years, I will give so and so finding possible, right? I
Correct.
agree with you.
Correct.
In which case, there is no problem. Like you're right,
Absolutely.
right? I
Absolutely.
agree. I
Yeah.
take your point.
Yeah.
But here, somewhere you're saying that the appellate authority stops short and just says that possibly, let's take a case where somebody has gone only on the ground of suppression. Let's take that case.
Correct.
Right? Let's say it's a 77 proceeding.
Right.
ऐसा समझ लो. CGST,
हाँ.
IGST का वो 77 proceeding. He anyway wants to pay the tax.
Right.
But he
Yeah.
goes on suppression. Let's say he says, no,
Correct.
sir, it's not a 74 proceeding. It's a 73 proceeding. आप लोगों ने 74 में डाल दिया है. तो he only takes one ground. Let's take that case.
Correct.
Right. तो अभी अपील अथॉरिटी क्या बोलेगा? आपने एक ग्राउंड लिया है कि yes, ये 74 नहीं है, 73 है. You are anyway admitting
I
the
agree.
tax. Right. In
Yeah.
which case he will say, yes, it's a 73.
Correct.
Now your point is, you're on that point where the demand for 3 years still subsists. Of course, interest is not an issue because 77 doesn't talk about interest.
Yeah.
The penalty is hanging on me.
Right.
Right. In which case your question is, amount is still payable, although
Yes.
it's not specifically set aside by the appellate authority.
May I add
Absolutely.
something?
I
Yeah.
think this is where
I think-
I have to give an example, right?
Rishabh bhai, may I add
Correct.
something?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think there is some provision, I'm not recalling, which says that you have to redetermine the tax liability as per 73.
I'm just trying to search for that. In fact, even I'm
It
trying
is
to
there,
search
it
for
is
that.
there, I think 75(3) or something. And I think what will happen that when they will be redetermining the tax liability as per 73, then automatically in this redetermination, the first year tax liability will become 0.
But
Vishal bhai,
only
Vishal
the
bhai.
second or third year tax
Vishal,
liability.
I am saying a situation. Appellate authority can pass any orders. If the appellate authority says that Ocha, it is 73, pay at the rate of this and a penalty of 10%.
Sir, it will redetermine the tax liability. I think this is what the provision says.
He redetermined and he is saying pay the tax liability for 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20. वो appellate authority अभी बोल रहा है.
Sir, so in redetermination, it will drop 17, 18 or we will
Vishal
have
bhai,
to...
now here the catch, I'm just adding to what Venu sir is saying is that let's say that redetermination didn't happen, or you've reached 31st March 2025 and still the redetermination has not happened. And third thing, what Venu sir's point is, which I'm just trying to ponder over still, is the clause 128 says amount payable as per the order of the first appellate authority. It does not say amount payable as per the demand notice issued pursuant to giving effect of the appellate order. Okay, this is what I think Venu sir's point is reaching at. Right, if you read 128A, it says amount payable as per the order. So as per the order, if you see, he's saying there's no amount payable. It just says 17, 18. It just says no, not a suppression case. Now, amount payable as per the order, and they don't quantify the liability. I think Venu sir's point is that they are only on the merits. In which case, the amount payable still as per the order will be the original amount. Officer does not issue a demand notice, or the time limit has reached as on 31st March and still the demand notice is not issued. And even if it is issued, the amount payable still stands originally is as per what the dispute was, is what Venu sir's point is. In that case, can you exclude 17, 18? I think this is where he's leading down the issue. I'll just think about it. I mean, give me some time during the course of the session and I'll come back to you.
Sure. No problem.
Right, because I mean, yeah. I'll now just quickly move on to what where we left off last time. Just
Rishabh, only one point. In
Yeah, yes,
APL,
yeah.
in APL 04, they have this column where they write what was the disputed amount, what
correct.
is the amount which has
Yes,
been dropped,
yes.
and what is the amount which has been confirmed. So
Yes.
what
this is what I
Venuji is saying
mentioned.
is what Venuji is saying is correct. Till the time amount is there in APL 04,
Yeah.
you can't say that I will only pay the part amount for 2 years, which is not within the time limit of 73, and I will skip that 1 year. Either I have
I
to
mean,
go into appeal for that order, or I have to pay the complete amount.
I mean, that's where even I am just stuck. So that's why I just held on to my view. And what Vishal Bhai's point is, let's take a more favorable case where a revised demand notice is issued. I was trying to search for a provision. Is there a revised demand notice provision? But let's say a revised demand notice is issued excluding that. Then what is your view, Yash Bhai?
But APL 04 itself is the summary of demand after the issuance of order by appellate authority.
Correct. But he is
So
not
that is the
quantif-
demand notice.
That's the demand notice, right?
Yes.
Fine. Okay. So in that case, then 1718 gets excluded.
No, it will not get excluded if if it has been included by the appellate authority in that order.
No, so
Wrongly, rightly, that's a separate issue. Either you go into appeal, or if you want to opt for 128 days, then you have to go for the complete order rather than picking only those
No,
years.
Are you referring to a case where even if he holds that 74 is not applicable, he will
Yeah,
still
let's say
quantify
he
1718 demand?
Yeah, let's say
Yes.
he takes that view what Arupji was saying.
No, but then that will be a
Before-
case of rectification, no?
exactly. And I
I
think
mean,
we have to
yeah,
make this a
assuming
point
it is
during
not
the-
done, which is the practical scenario, it is not a ideal way. The way they have to do, they are not doing it. I
Correct,
think
correct.
on ground reality is यही हो रहा है कि
Yeah.
like deemed assessments होता है, like बहुत कुछ होता है.
and interestingly, according to some appellate authorities, this is not a case of rectification. What
Yeah.
Arupji was saying, according to them, that's the correct interpretation of the law, irrespective of the fact that there is a circular already in place. They're still taking
that
a
was
view
exactly.
that 73 time limit, once the notice is there in 74, it only gets converted into 73.
Okay. I think
My small view on this is it is my view that when the notice is converted under section 1752 from 74 to 73, time limit does not apply because it is a deeming fiction. One,
Yeah,
and the
that is
second thing, yeah, and the second thing is earlier in the service tax era, because of the extension of the time period is not correct, then the original notice itself fails. And for that purpose only in the GST law, this provision specifically came. So when the notice converted from 74 to 73, time limit of 73 does not apply, to my mean.
even that is
Anand bhai, there is a
We are
circular thing,
deviating
sir.
from the topic.
Yes,
Sorry
Yeah,
to
yeah,
interrupt.
I think yes,
Rishabh ji, you can
Let's go back
moderate.
to Rishabh ji.
yeah.
Rishabh ji,
Yeah.
what do you think? नहीं तो
Anuj ji,
version
Anish here,
3.0 पे लगेगा इसका नहीं तो version
Yeah, fine.
3.2
Arupji,
Can I
Anish
move
here.
ahead
I
then?
want
Arup bhai, I can't hear. I think I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Anish जी या क्या बोल रहे
Yeah, Arupji, I want to just add one thing or seek a clarification that in section 128A, there is no time limit for passing any order.
I'll come to
See,
that. Yes.
if notice has been issued,
Rishabh has taken that point on note. He has it for discussion actually.
Yeah, I have it.
अंतर्यामी है वो जानते हैं कि ऐसा क्वेश्चन आ सकता है
चलिए
okay.
ओके मैंने अभी तक सेशन नहीं स्टार्ट किया अपना ये सब हमारा रिकैप ही चल रहा है
This is the enthusiasm
वो
of all the
नेटफ्लिक्स में और
participants.
प्राइम वीडियो में स्किप रिपैक है कोई अभी दबा दे तो विल स्किप द रिकैप
हाँ एकदम
चलिए नाउ so ultimately what I concluded the session and left it for all of us to examine is this an amnesty scheme, is this a dispute resolution scheme, or is this a waiver scheme? According to me, it's not amnesty, not dispute, it's still a waiver. And why I say that is because if you read the second proviso to 128A and if you read 128A4, now what happens is that 128 second proviso to 128A says that let's take a case where out of 10 issues, 3 issues were in your favor under a 73 proceeding, okay, or at an appellate proceeding, first appeal, out of 10, 3 were in your favor, 7 were against you. Let's take the case where the demand is quantified and you go ahead for the scheme. You will, of course, go ahead for the scheme for the 7 issues which are against you, pay the tax, claim the interest and the waiver benefit, interest and the penalty benefit. Department can, let's say when the tribunal is constituted, still take up the other 3 issues on appeal, or the issues which are in your favor, if there is a requantification, that also can be taken up. Now, what does this proviso have to say for those scenarios? Right? The proviso says that yes, if these are taken up in appeal and this amount of tax is payable. Now, there's no time limit of when you check this, okay? It says an amount of tax is payable pursuant to a department.
Arupji, can you mute others? Sorry.
Yeah. And an amount becomes payable. Again, we don't know the time frame under the proviso. Then the conclusion of proceeding which was conferred upon to you under 128A takes a back seat, and this proceeding again is thrown wide open. And unless you pay this amount within 3 months of the said order. So among the 3 issues, if the demand is quantified because of a department appeal and a demand is once the demand is quantified, again, it could happen even after the scheme closes. It's not that I'm not referring to a case where the scheme will close today, or the quantification of the 3 issues which were previously in your favor, then because of a tribunal appeal will be held to be against you, in which case this could happen even 26, 27. A fresh demand gets paid. You would have opted for the scheme for 7. You would have closed it. You would have said, yes, now the matter is concluded. Yes, sir. But 26, 27, the tribunal says, yeah, 26, 27, in 26, 27, the 3 issues are held against you. Demand becomes payable, interest becomes payable. Let's say even penalty becomes payable. In which case, the proviso says, then the proceedings are not conclusive. All the proceedings will get opened up. Okay. The interest and penalty on the 3 issues will continue to be payable. You don't get the benefit of those 3 issues. Okay. Unless you make the payment within 3 months of the said order, the additional payment. This is what I could conclude. And now look at 128A4. 128A4 says, if you are opting for this scheme, 128A4 says, if you are opting for the scheme, no appeal under 1071, that is SSE appeal, or a 1121, that's a SSE appeal again before the tribunal, shall lie. So while you cannot file an appeal if you opt for the scheme to an authority, even on the issues where you opted for the scheme, okay, it can be enhanced, okay, but when you opted for it, you cannot file an appeal, okay. The department can very well file an appeal against the 3 issues which were in your favor, and therefore the proceedings again get reopened. So that's somewhere I would say the paradox in the scheme. Okay. Now I would like to just open up if anybody wants to give any points on this. Okay. Should I go ahead then? Hello?
Please go ahead. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
fine.
Yeah.
128A2 says this scheme will not apply for erroneous refund. I was just pondering whether a case of erroneous refund will fall under 74 unless, of course, if you have fabricated documents and all that, yes, it will fall under 74. Otherwise, will it fall under 74 is something which came to my mind. It generally falls under 73 if your documents are all in place because you've presented it before the authorities, assuming you've given up whatever is required under the refund application. It cannot be a case where, I'm not talking about a case where you withheld documents, where you've given all the documents which is required under Rule 89 as the circular, let's say, In which case, ideally, I don't see a scenario unless somebody has some thoughts where it is strictly a 74 case. It's, let's say, a 73 case. So to that extent, I would say penalty will only be 10%. But I also want to leave you a thought, which I've taken a view, I need to really test it, is whether interest is applicable on under section 51 in a case of erroneous refund. Because interest, in my view, is a substantive provision. It has to, it is not, cannot come by way of a deeming or by way of, it's not an inherent right. Interest has to be collected by way of a specific statutory provision. In 51, I could only see cases where tax is not paid or short paid, or 54, which talks about ITC wrongly availed and utilized. Right. So I really couldn't see a case where an erroneous refund, which is specially carved out in 73, 74, being subject to interest, though the circular says if you want recredit, you have to pay with interest, etc. So in which case, erroneous refund, you really can find it out. You don't even really need to bother about the scheme. And penalty, I think, is also, of course, 10% penalty may be there. But otherwise, I don't see, may not be too substantial in the overall scheme of things. So to that extent, I don't think we are at a loss in a case of an erroneous refund. Third clause is, of course, I think it's a more procedural aspect. You have to file the application for withdrawal and has not been withdrawn. Now, do you need a withdrawal order? I think I have not examined this under the old laws, but generally there could be cases where somebody has applied for withdrawal and not got the withdrawal order. In which case the scheme, I'll whether it's manual or driven by the portal, we don't know. But the scheme, if it asks for a withdrawal order manually, let's say, then you may not have an order. Then in which case, what do you do? And you've touched 31st March 2025, where you have to make the payment. I think that's an answer I need to really dig out from the old schemes or old, Samadhana schemes or the Vivad Se Vishwas schemes, whether if the appeal is not withdrawal, where do you stand? Though an application has been filed, you have put it in motion, but you've not got the effect. If I have to really take forward the objective of the scheme, I think you should be granted the benefit, of course, subject to some amount of, issues on this. Second, the withdrawal of the scheme, I couldn't see a statutory provision for a withdrawal order or an application of withdrawal. I would believe that if you have a right to appeal, you have the right to withdraw as well. And that right, can it be withheld from you? I need to really examine this. This is something which I have not, unless somebody has any point on this, has any experience on this, or any legal, principle on this, on withdrawal of appeals and withdrawal of whether you need a withdrawal order.
For appeal filing, withdrawal is already there. It has been added in the rules. So
Okay.
there are different stages. If say before the admission of the appeal or summon notice, etc., the rules are there. So in certain cases, it can be withdrawal by the taxpayer itself. Certain cases, the withdrawal has to be admitted by the appellate. Withdrawal has to be allowed by the appellate authorities. If a notice, etc., has been issued by appellate authorities, then only they can allow the withdrawal. So the second point of your discussion, which you were saying, that if it has to be allowed by the appellate authority and it has not been allowed and the date comes, it is still hanging there. Where it is allowed, withdrawal is allowed, that is no need of discussion there, that the taxpayers can withdraw, but that point remains to be clarified.
Yeah,
How
I
will
think I
that
just
play out?
referred Rule 109C, I think, right? I just opened it up. It says
Yeah.
the appellate authority has 7 days time. So I think we should keep in that 7 working days buffer to file and before 31st March and file the application for withdrawal. Give him 7 days time. And after that, I mean, we can assume saying that yes, 7 days time was available for withdrawal, and therefore I can take that effect. I take your point, Gurjeet sir.
Yeah, but only the question which is still unanswered is, if I did not get the withdrawal order, can I still go ahead under
Yeah.
this scheme?
It says has not been withdrawn by the said person. So I have put it in motion. The said person has filed the application for withdrawal. Let's see.
Yeah.
Right.
There's one more point here. In the second case, it says that it doesn't apply on account of erroneous refund. So for few of the orders, we have that issue, and one of the issue is pertaining to the erroneous refund, and we have other issues also in that. So we have some around 5 to 6K issues. Out of that, one issue is relating to account of erroneous refund. So should I exclude that and go for the balance 5 issues under 128A?
Right.
Or is the whole order is I cannot apply for 128A because it says nothing contained in subsection 1. So how shall we read this actually?
Good point. I'll say, let's say out of 10 issues, 9 are against tax payable. 1 is against erroneous refund. I would say you can take the benefit and say that 9, as per the notice and order, is payable. And therefore, to that extent, I'm eligible for the scheme. It doesn't say nothing contained in 1 shall be applicable in respect of an order demanding erroneous refund. It says nothing in 1 shall be applicable in respect of an amount payable on account of erroneous refund. So somewhere they have drilled down not to the order in totality. They have not barred the order in totality. They have only barred the amount payable on account of erroneous refund.
Yeah.
So the stand which we had taken for time limit for a 5-year order, I think that same stand can be taken even for this.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I think I've spoken on this. I think there's no problem with this. And now it actually rang a bell that why 128 is placed in a scheme of waiver after 128. Because 128 I was referring to is a case whether they have the power to waive penalties and late fees. So subsequently, this is a scheme where it's a interest and penalty waiver. I don't think it's a dispute resolution. The disputes can be reopened up, right? I think I've gone into this. First point we have addressed. Second point we have addressed. Third point we have addressed. What if the order is only for interest and penalty and tax is not demanded? Now, we have cases, I'm sure everybody has this case, where you would have paid something during audit, ADT. You would have said, no, interest I will contest, penalty I will contest. What happens is central authorities, many of them, if they say that you have admitted, then they issue a demand only for the interest and penalty. Some of them say, no, I'll issue the demand for tax, interest, penalty and appropriate the tax. That could be another scenario. Or the third, the like state will say that, yes, I will issue an interest and penalty. So the notice is only for interest and penalty. Scenario 1, notice is only for interest penalty. Order is also for interest and penalty. No tax. Okay. You would have paid the tax before the notice, let's say under a DRC 1A proceeding. In which case, now the point comes up, there is no amount of tax payable as is required under 128A, but interest and penalty is payable. Whether you can go ahead for the scheme, I feel it's unfortunate. Of course, you may want to apply parity and say, how am I different from somebody who has, in fact, I'm better off. I paid the tax already. But the way the scheme is worded, it says amount of tax is payable. The intent may really help you, but the wordings are not helping you in this case. Right? So let's take a case where tax, interest and penalty is payable, but it's by way of appropriation. They say, I'm demanding the tax, but please show cause why I should not appropriate this DRC against this tax. Effectively, nothing is payable from your pocket. Here, I think it's clearly eligible. Amount is payable. It is by way of appropriation yet to be appropriated at the notice stage. Of course, at the order stage, if it's appropriated and then now you are in appeal only for the interest and penalty, you are back to the previous scenario. In which case, what do you do? So either you contest that matter again on appropriation also in APL and then use this. So you do that. That's the via media I would think of. Keep contesting it so that some amount is still payable and it's not finalized. But where only an interest and penalty is payable, I think you will have to only go fight for intent, saying the intent is not to deny me. Just because the manner of the order and every officer may choose to have a different way of passing the order. The manner of passing the order should not deny me the benefit when the scheme itself requires. I just want to know from the group, this appropriation concept is there from the central excise regime. Even I have been really following it. But what is the concept behind this? Does anybody have any research on this? I've never done it. Anybody thought about it on what is this? How did this system really emerge of a demand being created and then being appropriate? And why this system didn't operate under a VAT scheme? If I'm not deviating too much from the topic.
Your
that
question
may
is
somewhere
regarding
give us
the
an
previous
answer.
law or the current law. So you are asking whether it was.
I see this is a hangover from the old law, right? I don't know it's a hangover, but this is a practice from the old law.
But I guess, Rishabh, this is it is only a procedural way to rightfully collect the interest and penalty. Because Section 73, I cannot have a penalty and interest unless there is a tax demand. So I create a demand, I appropriate all the payments, and then
Correct.
levy the interest and penalty.
Correct. Correct.
If I say the taxes are paid, is like legal fight to say that when no taxes, where is the question of penalty and interest? I believe.
No, but
only
now we have high courts, where only interest is payable. Still, it's a 73 proceeding. We had this issue, right?
Agreed. Not every time we can say that that comes for rescue to the department.
No, see, what I could take away from those decisions, interest is automatic. You may not need an adjudication. It can be recovered directly under 79 if you are not contesting it.
Yeah, but if you are passing under 73 and not 79.
No, 79 is a direct recovery. You don't need an order.
No, but there is no there is no quantification. Like demand note has to be issued. No, that's my view. I might be wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Again, this is a second.
Sir, I was just wondering whether this appropriation is still done in GST, like while filing DRC 03. I guess taxpayer himself does the appropriation, like where he wants to get his amount adjusted, isn't it? Or still the officers can appropriate it against some different head, whether interest or penalty or tax. Is it at the officer's call or is it the taxpayer's call? How they want to appropriate it?
See, if you're asking about the scheme, it's the officer's call which is ultimately going to decide it. You cannot challenge that because you're going under the scheme. You're at his, what do you say?
No, maybe if we are filing, suppose we are filing DRC 03 and we are saying that, okay, fine, I'm paying tax amount and not interest and penalty. Then officer has to anyway either accept my DRC or say, no, your DRC is not valid. I will not accept your amount. You go for the refund or so, and you need to pay the remaining XYZ amount. But how can they appropriate that DRC, particular DRC against any other
So
thing?
let's
That's
say you're
what I'm-
talking about a case where you paid it under a wrong head.
Correct. Wrong is as per the officer. According to me, I have paid it under corrected. Like I have paid in tax.
Can you give me an example? Let's say let's say you were supposed to reverse. Let's say let's say you have to reverse or pay off IGST, but you according to you, officer says you have to pay IGST, but you paid under CGST, SGST, right?
Rishabhji, even in the IGST payment, they are asking sometimes we have to mention the
POS.
place of supply.
POS, correct. Correct.
And if it is there is a wrong POS mentioned, then also they are not accepting sometimes.
Correct. Chalo, theek hai. I'll take this. So I think in the first case where the enactment itself is different, you still have the amount is still payable under IGST. In which case you have to pay this amount, you separately claim a refund. I don't see an issue. I don't see a other solution to this. You have to do this, right? Because you have to go by the order, the demand which is stated as per the order. Right or wrong is not subject matter of the scheme at all now. You are not on right and wrong here. You're not legal or illegal. You're on whether you're in or out of the scheme. So even if you're on appeal under the first appeal authority saying, no, this demand has already been paid. He's created it under the wrong head. I have paid it under CGST, SGST. So he's wrong. I think that's very clear. You have to pay this if you want to go under the scheme. Otherwise, you keep contesting it, right? The second issue, which somebody raised, is he's saying IGST. I'm also saying IGST. But we differ on POS. amount payable under the act, I think it says, right? Amount payable or chargeable with tax in accordance with the act. I think here you have a case. I think here you need not pay it. You claim the benefit, let him reject the scheme. Here I think it will create some amount of litigation if at all somebody thinks that at such a level, so minutely. But I think here you have absolute case. If you paid IGST with the wrong POS, because I know we face this issue. Sometimes we don't know the POS under which they create the demand. And we may generally presume, let's say he creates a demand of 12%, let's say 6% demand, 12 and 18, he shifts us to 18. And we have our IGST B2B, IGST B2C. Generally, there's a tendency just pay it under something, some POS and just close it. We don't go to each invoice level. Against each invoice level, again redraw all the POS.
So we usually pay under other category, other
हाँ
POS,
कुछ ऐसा कुछ
other
कर लेते हैं
territory.
हम लोग. हाँ 99 में डाल देते हैं. तो फिर क्या होता है, क्या करना? तो I think there you have a case here that can be rectified. I think I don't call it a rectification. I think you paid it. It's for the government to internally settle their accounts. You are not bound by that.
Rishabh ji, one thing is there, you have taken the two scenarios. Third scenario is that notice was issued for tax, interest and penalty, but in the final order, no tax was payable. Okay. It is the case, no tax was payable in the final order, only interest and penalty is there.
Correct,
So
correct.
Can they apply for scheme then?
You can't know under B because now you're not under C, you're under B.
Okay.
Amount
Under
is amount
B.
of tax payable as per the order.
Then there is no amount payable, tax payable as per the order, then I think we will not be eligible for this.
Yes. Amount of tax is payable as per notice, but amount of tax is not payable as per order.
That is
I think, wait, let me just read. Yeah, I think you don't have an option.
So that is what the plain reading says actually, and that's why we are requesting all members. We have members from across India here. Please do represent before your principal chief commissioners of central tax or state commissioners, citing this particular issue. That even if there is a notice issued against which I have paid my tax liabilities and only interest and penalty is due, it should be brought under this particular scheme of 128A. Because we have already presented before a few states and they have requested us that please present it across India. Then only it will get momentum and then only we can. Because
in our case, tax notice was there, but tax was not payable at all basically. And he dropped their tax demand, but he late filing of interest only. It's only late filing of the was confirmed.
No, sir. Standalone interest and standalone penalty. Say standalone interest is when you have not filed the 3B on time, and the penalty, say in case of general penalty is on, that will never be covered.
That then Vinu Bhai's point I have already taken that for in 73 you can't demand only interest. Interest of late filing of done can't be demanded under 73. We have taken that point also.
See, sir, if he cannot be demanded, then you're on a point that interest is not payable. It's better contesting it. Okay.
Yeah.
But if let's say he's done it.
Rishabh, it's 9:53.
Yeah, fine. I'll quickly move it.
Yes, over to Rishabh, yes.
I'll quickly move it. Whether next point is whether all orders of a tax period need to be admitted into the scheme. I think no, you can filter out what is under 73. You can, for a tax period, you can go in entirety for those schemes. What is out of 73 for let's say 1 year itself, then you can't go into the scheme. What if period of dispute itself is in dispute? Sorry. What if you're saying no, this is a tax liability of 17, but he's saying no, it's a tax liability. Let's say in these JDA cases, we are having a debate on which year the tax liability arises, on the sign of on the date of JDA or the date of possession. Here, let's say you're saying it's 17-18, officer is saying 20-21. Okay, for whatever reason. If you go under 17-18, then you are part of the scheme. But if you go as per officer's version, he passes an order or issues a notice saying no, it's under 20-21. In which case, and if that's really under dispute, then you can't go under the scheme. Because it has to be as per the order of if the period itself is in dispute, you go by the officer's version, is my take. Right? Next, whatever matter is pending before court under interim stay, let's say ADT 1 to ASMT 12. Let's say you've gone to the High Court and said, no, this is in a cross empowerment provision. He cannot do under He cannot do an ADT or an ASMT, and there is an interim stay. Okay. Since it's before notice, I don't think you can go forward for the scheme. You continue with that proceeding, and let's say whatever outcome comes, you fall under the normal course. And there could be scenarios where the 73 is also stayed. Although the normal time limit is passed, because of the stay, it gets extended under a high court, stay. Then now you withdraw that petition from the high court. The time limit revives, which was under suspension. And then the notice is payable, whatever amount is payable as per the notice, you'll have to go under the scheme. What about self-assessed liabilities? GSTR 1 3B difference. Whether that will form part of the scheme. See, I was thinking about this. According to me, if it's a self-assessed liability, they don't need to do a 73 proceeding, right? Because they can directly recover. Okay, let's say they'd issue a notice. If they can directly recover, tax interest is payable, penalty may not be payable. Or penalty is also payable, sorry. 7310, I think, talks about a penalty payable. Now, let's say for a GST 1 3B difference, they issue a 73. Then can you go under the scheme? I think you can go under the scheme. The fact that he's disputing it and he's issued a notice, even though it is self-assessed, I think you can go under the scheme. Anybody has a contra view, let me know. What about co-notices? Can the proceedings be concluded? I think yes, the explanation says so. Co-notices proceedings are also concluded. But this conclusion is again subject to that proviso which we read, second proviso, that the conclusion will be overturned if you don't make the payment within the additional tax payable within 3 months. Who's the proper officer? This was something which I couldn't find in the section. It says that the amount of tax is waived. Now, the order could have been passed by, let's say in Karnataka, the audit authorities. The range, okay. The notice could have been issued by the anti-evasion or the enforcement authorities. And who's the proper officer for concluding this point? Who do you file before? If it's online, then it really doesn't matter. But if it's manual, who do you file it before? I couldn't see any clarity on this. Generally, I would file it before the person against whose document I am seeking a waiver. And so if it is issued by enforcement, I will file the scheme before the enforcement authority. That's what I could practically perceive. If it's an audit, then again audit. If it's a LV or range, what we have in Karnataka, you will have range in other states as well. Then you file it before the person against whose document you are seeking a waiver. And there is no scheme of a personal hearing or anything. But I think
Rishabh sir, can I mention it? So on this point, audit officer, enforcement officer, this state or that state, whatever the state, whatever maybe CBIC, etc. If an SCN has been issued, the further proceedings are always with an adjudicating officer. The officer may be same or different, so there is no confusion about this. Even the payments made in pursuance of show cause notice by DRC 03 are handled by the adjudicating officer. So I don't think there should be any scope of doubt on this. That would be my.
Fine, sir. Whether recovery of transitional credit is under the scheme, revenue believes so, because they see it is input tax wrongly availed or utilized, and they are also invoking 73. So, but generally, I thought it was under a rule, under 117, if my memory is right. But I think that's not a problem. But I just thought I'll just flag it off. Is there cross empowerment of this provision? I think what Gurjeet sir is saying, that let's say you're under the administration of the center, but the notice is by the state enforcement, then I think you'll have to, since it's part of the entire enactment, there is cross empowerment. You'll have to file it before the authority who is seized of this proceeding, right? What if rectification proceeding? I think somebody asked this. We applied and pending as on the notified date. If it's applied and pending as on the notified date, on the last date, I think you'll have to make the full payment. And if it is applied between the appointed date and then order is passed before 31st March, in which case then I think you can go ahead for the scheme, because the amount payable, amount which is chargeable under this act, is the amount as per the rectified order, and you paid before 31st March, it should not be a problem. Then one point came up, I don't know if it practically happens, but let's say the demand proceeding is under 73. You've gone for the scheme. The revision authority says, no, this is not a scheme of, this is not a case of, it's not a non-suppression case. It is a case of evasion. I've seen cases where bill trade, where they were let's say they have issued a demand saying 2A, 3B difference, but it's actually because of a fake bill. Tomorrow some report comes in and the revision authority says, no, this is not a case of 73. You might have opted for the scheme. The notice might have been issued on the scheme. I will reopen it as a 74 and I'll impose the additional penalty or the differential penalty. Now, this is where the second proviso will operate. The proviso which says that the conclusion of the proceeding is subject to so-and-so scenarios. This falls under that, where the revision authority will reopen it on suppression. Then if there's an amount of, there's no amount of tax payable, but the penalty becomes payable. I would believe you're out of the scheme because the revision authority is holding so. And this is where I would not believe this is a dispute resolution scheme. This is only a waiver scheme. So the revision authority has the power to alter the section under which this. I'll just call you back. I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back. I'm in a meeting. I'll just call you back. What if there is a duplicity in the proceeding? On the same subject matter, you have multiple wings, issuing it. Let's say they are the same amount. Let's say, you're very lucky, they're the same amount. Now, whether all two or three orders will prevail, or generally what we've seen is that if you tell the other you tell the other officer that, somebody's already seized of this issue, you drop the proceeding, they drop generally. Now, let's say there's a variation. Against whose notice or order do you apply for the scheme? Okay. This was something which I couldn't get an answer. Let's say state has come in first, then center, takes the proceeding on that same issue, and center's number is lower than the state's number. Okay. Now you would be tempted to file for the scheme before the central authorities because that's a lower number. But the states have already been seized of this issue. So under 6(2), the states have the right to continue. So can you lobby and say that, no, I'll go for the center because that's lower? I think that's a case to be fought. Because statutorily 6(2) will operate. So state's order will operate. But we always take this contention when the two are with each other, then amount actually payable is the lower of them, right? When two officers cannot, for the same issue, two different officers, the lower will be taken. Let's say the order is passed. I've also thought of a case where center has come in second, but order is passed before the state. Let's take that case also. Notice is first, order is second. Again, these are permutations. I thought I'll just put it across. I don't have an answer. What happens to, let's say I'm defending a case of ITC and department has gone and recovered. There's also issued a notice against the supplier. The supplier pays the tax under the scheme or outside the scheme. I think ITC is eligible. Conflict between second proviso and 128(2) I've given. Manual web portal process, fine. I think this is all I could. I'm not going into 13.3. That was also the topic assigned to me. But these are the points which I could think of. I'm sure there are a lot more FAQs which may come up once the scheme is rolled out and representations are made. Now, I mean, it's 10 o'clock. If anybody wants
Can I just add one more point to this? Just one more point can I add to your list?
Yeah, please, sir.
Let us say there were 10 audit issues, out of which 4 I paid and 6 I want to contest. So they issue show cause notice for the 6, but interest for entire 10.
Yeah.
So the show cause is having some part of tax payment, but interest and penalty for multiple issues, which I already paid under DRC 03.
Correct. I think there you can take the benefit.
I know it. You can take. I'm giving you a clue how you can get into 73, even if the notice is only for interest penalty. maybe during appellate or any stage wherever we are, we can ask some additional demand to be raised on any issue which we may give to them. And if the order has even a small demand of 10,000, then after that we can get ourselves covered in the scheme. This is my practical way out for
Maybe a
the
cost for that 10,000 also.
yes, obviously.
Fine.
Unrecorded.
Sir, in the beginning, I guess you said that it will be applicable at notice level and not at the issue level. Is it correct? What I'm
Yeah.
So then I think it's a benefit what is intended. I don't think it will ultimately reach the goal. That interpretation, I don't know. I am not able to accept that.
No, I think in
Because
the past, this issue has been debated and the high courts have said you have to take it in entirety.
Because, sir, in many cases it happens that suppose there is a notice, there are 5 issues. In 3 or 4 issues, department is accepting our point because generally they issue notice without any inquiry or verification. Once we provide the documents, they are agreed to drop the points. Only at 1 or 2 points they do not agree, and that happens in 99% of the cases.
But unfortunately, you can't pick and choose, sir, as per the scheme.
Yeah, Rishabh, as
Okay.
See, this is a concession scheme. You have to abide by those restrictions to the letter T. I mean, intention.
Then, sir, it
The
will
courts have said
suppose-
that you should not don't opt for the scheme. You can't. I mean,
Supposing-
equality. Going on equality principles will be tough.
Rishabh, I think you have given us a lot of pointers for today, and it will be wonderful once we get your PPT. Maybe we'll go through it.
Sure.
And as I was just sharing, let us all please, whatever representations have to be made, they have to be made now. As you saw the change in capital gains that has happened regarding indexation, it has happened only because of representations being given from across the industry.
Correct. Correct. There was a lot of mileage on that. True.
So on this footing, we'll have a closure on today. Thank you so much, Rishabhji. It was really wonderful. So Venu,
Thank you, sir.
Venu, over to you for your final words. And then
In
we'll
fact,
close
I
the
need to
meeting.
thank this group. Sorry, Venu sir, but I need to thank. I would not have read this section if not for the this task entrusted by Venu sir and Arup sir to me. मैं पक्का नहीं पढ़ता ये section. And I need to thank you for this. It was a very enriching experience for me because when you're faced with such a learned audience, it becomes, and if I'm not able to deliver to the extent of the issues which the audience is already up to speed, it would be unfair on my part. So I should thank the group and the audience for pushing me through this, Venu sir and Arup sir especially.
Thank you, Rishabh. And thanks to all the participants for your overwhelming support. I think coming out in large numbers. So Venuji, over to you.
Yeah, and as Rishabh rightly mentioned, that his knowledge enriched by taking the session. That's what happens. Like most of the time, I take session because I will have to do that reading for the session. I cannot take audience for granted. And every time we read, it's a new perspective. I'm sure everyone would have read 128A for your budget related presentation, but what Rishabh has walked us through made us to think the practical on ground what happens and what are all the things that we are not aware of. And that is the opportunity of our SMS. We are not here to discuss such a provision. Kya hai? Provision to sabko pata hai. What is the implication? And again, to all the members, that always we should keep the conversation to the straight and not deviating to the subject. And also very much more important is be participative and contributing to the others' views. Special thanks to Rishabh for taking us to the new provision. And I'm sure it is equally new to you as it is for everyone. But you have done such a wonderful research and enlightened all of us. Thank you so much. And we'll upload the video and share the presentation.
Yeah. I'll share it. I'll share it on the group.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful week ahead. And let's meet again next Saturday.
Yes.
SMS pe milte hain. Bye. Good day.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.